I want to compare the demands on social abilities 200,000 years ago to today. Uh, there's a huge demand in both times. I want to focus on sort of what kind of social abilities were favored by the environment and by the community that we were engaged in, by life, 10,000 or 200,000 years ago versus today. And I'm wondering whether 200,000 years ago we were mostly interacting with our blood and our sort of lifetime community members. And there was a sense of loyalty and unity and trust um, in the other members of that group. And so the social skills that were favored were how you interact with the in group, how you interact with people that you know, people that can be held accountable. And and actually, that's something I hadn't thought of before recording. That's really important. So we evolved in a society where if somebody does something wrong, they're my neighbor. They can get what's coming to them. Um, so we evolved to be interacting while surrounded around by people, while surrounded by people that are going to remember this, that I'm going to have to interact with again. Um, and then I compare that to today, and I think about what comes to mind when I think of the word elite. When I think of the word, I don't know, these successful people. And what comes to mind, not for all successful people, because others have found other representatives in order to, avoid needing that, but a lot of them, it's about being professional. A lot of successful people, it's a lot easier for them to be professional. Comes more naturally to them, I think. Um, and what does it mean to be professional? It means in French to vous voyez. There's an interpersonal distance that's meant as some symbol of respect. You don't fart around the person. You don't blah blah blah. So there's all these codes of etiquette. You can't just say anything around the person, and these tend to be things that might properties of an interaction with an outgroup member. Um, and that makes a lot of sense because a big thing about our environment that's changed when compared to 200,000 years ago is who we're interacting with on a daily basis. Most of the people, of course, I have the life that I have, but when if you're living in Paris and you get on the metro, and when you change jobs or when you start a job, even if you do a job for 5 years, these are not lifetime people, and they're people that you might be in competition with that are not really a part of your community, that your brain doesn't really. Now, sometimes, if you've been there for 5 years, maybe it starts to categorize them as part of your community, but then you still got other mechanisms running. I don't know these people, and that's just not the culture that's encouraged. Um, you're not supposed to really be sort of a family at work. We laugh about that. Um, but our brains didn't evolve to work with potential threats all the time, outgroup members all the time. But some people can do it pretty well. It's pretty easy. I know people who it's hard for them to stick with a vouvoie, to, use the formal you in French. And I know other people, I couldn't get them for the life of me to switch to the informal you. And it just comes so naturally. It's like no matter how safe they say that they feel, some people, they just can't open up. And these people are really good at sort of what's demanded of today as far as interacting with other people. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think that they're happy. Um, which, but they're able to fake it enough to make it. Anyway, so our environment is currently whatever I was gonna say. You understand? It's favoring, or putting pressure, whatever. It's favoring a social aptitude with the outgroup. Or social aptitude with people that you don't have a sort of a lifetime trajectory with. Um, I don't think our brains evolved for friendships to change the way they did. I think friendships are supposed to survive a lot more than they do in today's society. Um, I think we're supposed to be stuck with people, and we're supposed to experience these. And I'll be honest, that's a huge mistake maybe of mine. That me, before I understood that I was a human being, when I thought that we were all these intelligent robots, obviously cut them loose if you're not liking it. But I don't think the brain evolves for that. And I think that what ends up happening is we sort of feel a loneliness from not having any relationship. Some people, there are too many people today who don't have any relationship that goes back all the way, a day one, where it's been a consistent reliance on a person or group of people or whatever. Um, and, we tell each other, cut them loose if they're not of use or whatever. Um, and I think that would be great advice if we were reasonable. We're not. So I think we get ourselves in sort of, I think it hurts. We end up being lonelier than the brain was prepared to be. Um, I think that we're supposed to talk about things, talk about conflicts, sort it out, um, let time pass, and just we're supposed to be stuck together. Just because that's what the brain evolves with, and I don't think it's doing a great job with this culture. It's a huge conflict between, or there's a huge like gap between these cultural ideals and practices and how this works. So in 200,000 years ago, somebody who I wasn't there, okay? I'm just 200,000 years ago, someone who was super just like me, just open and just saying things, being direct or whatever. Um, and that person was known by the people that he was speaking to. They had a track record of his behavior. They knew well that they could count on him and so on. They had context to interpret his sharing his thoughts. They knew how to interpret the fact that he was sharing his thoughts. Um, and we could take a joke as well. Now I'm not someone who I didn't have a problem with. A real problem with. I got off that you know sexist racist joke thing pretty quickly. Uh, so I was one of the. Okay, I was one of the first, but in high school, oh, can't say gay, okay, and from that, I pretty quick was like, oh, okay, so we're just gonna junk all this stuff that mentions race and blah blah blah. But one time, and I've mentioned this in videos before, I made a joke. Someone told the story. I was in a group of people. A bunch of people had taken a year off from their studies to volunteer in underserved LA schools, communities, to help get these kids on track to graduation. And so not an indecent group of people. And one of them told a story that she had been working at a summer camp, and the kids there would go fart in this closet. Anytime they had to fart, they always went in this fart closet. And I said to someone, "Oh boy, I'd hate to be secretly gay at that camp." 200,000 years ago, everybody's in stitches. The pairing of gay and humor doesn't have anyone concerned. Hey, what kind of attitude do you have about that? Because they knew. They knew what kind of attitude I had. These were people that I interacted with. Now, these people also, in 2018, 2013, 2013 knew my values. But it wasn't a community where it's gonna be like, these are my people that I'm stuck with. I see the good in things. I don't. No, this is a community of individuals. We just met like 2 months ago, and we're like this. And if someone standing like this talks loud and then pairs humor and gay, no good. And that kind of sensitivity to violations, that's what you would expect between two non-same group members. 200,000 years ago, they know that, just 10 years before this, I was, during the tribe elections, I was like, yo, this guy's being weird about sodomy. Problem. So they know that. So there's no, so all it is, haha, play on words. Haha, funny. That's it. So, great. My point is that just the way that it's happened, the social selection is favoring, or natural selection of socializing is on the social axis is favoring, I could have said that better. Okay, whatever, you understand. It's favoring people who are better with interpersonal distance. And I don't know that that's a good thing. Now, here's just one thought of how that could happen, based on very little knowledge about world history. So, one piece of history that I think that I know, I have this sense of the development of language in and the aristocracy. So, you're a peasant. The only thing that matters is communication. You don't have to do it like a full sentence. Throw a couple keywords at the other. Not that they didn't do full sentences, but I'm saying that they don't have to. It's like, how you interact sometimes with your best friend or your family member, where it's just like, oh, blah, blah, okay, blah, blah. Okay. Shit, where am I going with this? I know what I'm about to say now, but where am I going with this? Language. Oh yeah, this favoring of distance and so on. Yeah. Okay. Also, there's gonna be a lot more touching, right? There's gonna be a lot more in a peasant community. There might be a lot more touching, a lot more animation, right? But then aristocracy, or being the elite or whatever, was associated with a certain stiffness, a control of oneself, and you had to constantly be demonstrating this control, this robotic likeness, because that's how we started to think of ourselves more and more. And so you're not one of these beast, one of these mouth breathers. No, fuck those mouth breathers, those knuckle draggers. I'm refined. Um, and, I'm not all in your business, touching you and all that stuff. Instead, I am showing you my education. I am relying as much as I can on vocabulary, on semantics and syntax to communicate it to you that follows the rules that we learned in school, because otherwise you will think that I'm one of them. And when you take out the tactile component, when you take out the grunting, the sounds, the onomatopoeia, the reliance on being on the same wavelength, so skipping words and stuff, when you take out the muttering and all this stuff, aren't you taking out the intimacy? Or is there like are both those things happening for the same reason? Isn't I feel like there's some association there. That as we sort of see ourselves as these robots that speak in defined words that follow rules in a sentence, that as we do that, the mechanisms of intimacy, of reminder of your closeness and history with the person, sort of dissipate. I mean, doesn't that just match, if we imagine two siblings, one that goes the white collar route, one that goes the blue collar route or has trouble or something, and they're supposed, they're like this in the societal echelon, whatever, and then don't we imagine, at least in the films, isn't one of them a lot looser? Um, I guess we could imagine the successful one being dominating looser in a sense. Um, but imagine they're both happy in the interaction, okay? Aren't we imagining the lower class one being more just comfortable? I mean, I don't have to harp on that, right? That's an obvious thing that as you go up the social echelon, you act more like a robot. You you choose your words more carefully rather than just expressing yourself. Um, you you just follow all these rules. You don't fart. I don't know. I like farting things. I've forgotten about that. Anyway. Anyway. Okay. So I think I've demonstrated that in 21st century Western society, there is a correlation between life, sort of success and opportunity. So like, I mean, not actually reproduction though, because they actually have fewer kids, so it's not really even about survival, but about like comfort in life. Not really, not even happiness in life, but like, this is interesting because actually the wealthy aren't, although you would think that like their behavior and preferences and all that have been favored by our society. As far as what actually counts as reproduction, they're making fewer kids. Okay. Wait a minute. Because it's not even like these are the best people. Gosh, what? Gosh, just all them. So, I mean, it literally has nothing even to do with. I mean, just cut the top of the pyramid off. I guess something's happening as I realize that. Because yeah, I'd be inclined. I thought I've been assuming societal top, survival top, that those are the same thing. That if you're making $200,000 a year in 2023, then you're up there. Um, and the parallel being to the top man in the tribe, or the top, person in the tribe, whatever, in the hierarchy. And then, because in 200,000 years ago, that top person who's demonstrated the best skills and so on has the best reproductive chances, right? So these things are indicative of reproductive, or will par reproductive success. I hadn't realized that when we realized that that's not the case today. That's an important thing to realize, and that changes. That we have to junk sort of part of what I'm saying. Say, yeah, that assumption didn't exist, but that mechanism was there, and then we realized that that mechanism is unfounded. Okay. Wait, so fuck them because they've got this like they're what? They're like working their asses off their whole lives to like have this like number success, the most money. And then in any turn, when you step back and you look at like generations, they just played a game and fucked off. Okay. Anyway. Uh right. Right. So no, it undermines everything that I've said then. There's no need for me to be concerned about that distant social profile being favored because more kids are being produced in cultures and by parents who don't need that distant social profile and aren't necessarily particularly good at it. Not saying that they're bad at it, but it's just like there's just no preference for it at a higher rate than kids are coming out of these people. Right. 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 But there are religious groups, though, that are trying to churn out these kids, and those religious groups are teaching. But I don't. But they're not. But nobody's like failing to reproduce because they have. They don't naturally have They aren't as predisposed for that sort of. No, but then some of them will leave the community and then go live a lonely life. No, but maybe they'll find somebody. But then they'll just have two kids. And if they had stayed in the community, they would have had like five or six kids. Okay, so there is some preference. There are some zones, in a little religious community, there's going to be a genetic favoring of production of kids that is going to have that effect, but very small. But mostly, okay, good, cool. All right, well, we're not worried about that then. That's cool. Yeah. So once the revolution happens, we just got to be humans. Just got to remember that we're human, okay? Oh, speak like this and act like this, all that stuff. It's like, it was just like a product of our brain to be able to like do that, but it doesn't mean we're supposed to do that all the time. It doesn't mean we're supposed to make that a rule. Um, for some reason, we are able to demonstrate more control. We were able to have more control of our sort of body and of our impulses. It's good to have some control, be able to have mechanisms that can inhibit impulses. But that's not supposed to be inhibiting all impulses all the time. Loosen up. Anyway, so that'll happen with the revolution once we've had enough of these people that were able to keep these sticks high up their butts. Okay?